The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Copy that! He adds the race by Grins to his already magnificent CV, and copy that for the race by Grins in 2023.
So some terrific vision there from Cambridge last Friday night. Yes, the second running of the race by Grins, an outstanding atmosphere, a terrific race. And Michael Guerin, I know as much as I enjoyed being there, you did too.
Yeah, it was fun. Good morning to you, Greg, and big hi to everybody watching around Australasia. Good to have our Australian friends as part of our coverage. Great night, wonderful evening put together by David Branch and his team. Wonderful occasion. Had a good ambience to it. I think David's very aware they can add to it for next year. And the best horse when the race won, Greg, it was actually ended up being a very formulaic race. And I've got no issue with that. I think we saw enough about those who are behind Copy That to say they will beat him at some stage in this autumn. Maybe it won't be this Friday night at Alexandra Park, but Greg, once he got the top, this race felt like it was over, but there was enough movement there to suggest they didn't just really give him the race. So it was probably a deserved victory. He's a horse who's been on an awfully unusual roller coaster in the last 18 months. And I think at this stage, Greg, he's still the best horse in New Zealand, particularly when they hold the races in New Zealand.
Yep, absolutely he is. So let's go back and have a look at the race by Grins, the entire race. And behind the gate, really good atmosphere building into it. And as they hit the 2,200 metre start point, all the talking stops, Michael, and off the gate quickly. We expected Old Town Road to find the markers first, but it became very apparent that Blair Orange was going to get the lead probably before I thought he would. I thought Zach might make him work to the apex of the corner or maybe even to the top of the back straight the first time. But once he got there and crucially got a 30-second quarter with absolutely no pressure, as we saw BD Joe get to parked and then Better Eclipse come around self-assured and eventually get into the park position. He got into a beautiful rhythm, a rhythm as we know when he's in front. He's virtually unstoppable.
Well, initially, I agree with what you're saying. Some people thought that Old Town Road might race Copy That more and try and put some early pressure into the race. I think Zach did the right thing because by handing up immediately, he managed to keep Old Town Road while still watching him there, still on the nick of a touch. He wasn't overly fired up like he was the week before, but he was sweating up. He's a horse who's become not so much hot this campaign, but he's become very racy. And I think by handing up, Zach gave himself his best chance. Copy That in front here obviously he's had a very easy time. There's a lot of moves in the race. Some people will complain there's no moves, but there are moves. How many moves can you have? Like BD Joe went forward, Better Eclipse went forward, Self Assured went forward, and then Kango went forward, and Akuta's 3 wide. As we watch this vision, we see 888 go into a gallop with a broken hopple. So I think plenty of horses moved, but when you're ticking over at that sort of 2:36 rate, Greg, you can only move so much. You can only go so fast. There's no real attacking at that speed because you're going close enough to maximum for what you'd want to be doing in the middle stages of a race. Around about here, I thought to myself, there's only 2 winning chances here. That's the leader and the trailer. Natalie handled Self Assured beautifully and got off at the right time. But over the last 2 years, when Self Assured has versed Copy That, and they've had comparable runs, well, the one with the slightly better run has tended to win. That was the case, again, at Cambridge on Friday night.
The big gun's about to fire. The leader, Copy That. Old Town Road, Self-Assured down the outside. It's Copy That, though. Copy That. He adds the race by Grins to his already magnificent CV. And Copy That for the race by Grins in 2023 over Old Town Road.
Blair Orange there getting the win, and Zachary Butcher, he just knew that Copy That was too smart on the night. We'll hear from those drivers very, very shortly, but there's some excellent runs in behind too, so let's get to those. Here's Blair Orange, a delighted Blair Orange taking out his first ever race by Grins. I reckon that one meant a bit.
It did, mate, yeah. Pretty special when you compete in races like that, Greg, and the crowd's there and, you know, racing for $1 million. You do get hyped up for it, so yeah, I did enjoy the moment.
You knew the motor you had in front of you, and you knew the sooner you got to the lead, the better. Did it pan out exactly the way you thought?
Yeah, 100%. You know, they stated that BD Joe was going to come forward early, Greg, but I wasn't too worried about that. You know, my guy's very quick off the arm, and, you know, Old Town Road's lethal weapons with the sit, so the way the draws foul and the way the race panned out was, yeah, 100% happy.
Yeah, that opening 30-second quarter, I know it was 27.7 out of the gate, but the next 30 was almost crucial to it, wasn't it?
It was indeed, just gave him that little bit of a breather he needed, and I knew they were going to come at some stage, Greg, and had to quicken up again, but, you know, to the horse's credit, it's all on him.
You don't salute very often, that told me it meant a lot, but your relationship with Ray Green, it's really... Well, it's got a lot stronger since you've been associated with this horse, it'd be fair to say.
Yeah, no, Ray's a champion guy, Greg. He's been around the world and he's just such a pleasure to drive for. There's no pressure. As he said in an interview, someone said that if he was to get beat tonight, so be it. We'll still get up tomorrow and go again. And yeah, full credit to Ray and all the team at Lincoln Farms. They make my job so much easier.
Congratulations, mate. You are now a $1 million race winner of the Race by Grins.
Cheers, Gregor.
I know you would have liked to have won the race, but you've got a great race.
Yeah, everyone wanted to win that for sure. Like you got to be totally brutally honest and say, Copy That, he was just the best horse tonight, and you know it's great to see that racing needs that sort of thing. And as much as I'd love to have beaten him, that's only one of many coming up. So we're going to have our chance. Our guys on the way up, and yeah, we're thrilled with him. He's run a good second.
Did you feel at any stage that you were on the back of the horse, obviously to beat? Did you think you would be able to get past him?
100%. You know, you got to have confidence in your horse, and I did all the way till probably 150 from home. And Copy That, he ran some pretty slick quarters before that last one. And again, you got to give it to him. He's a champion. 56 home, 28. He just kept going. He hit that line like a superstar he is. And yeah, like I said, we'll wait for future races. He'll get his turn.
You've been coming to Cambridge all your driving career. How special was it to come out on the track with that atmosphere, with the crowd that's there, and a real party atmosphere? It was something pretty cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I'll be totally honest with you. I was there in the zone concentrating. I didn't really hear much of the noise, but to see the crowd even after and hear them up there right now, it's special. And kudos to all the Cambridge team and the people that help out at the club here. They've done a sensational job, and this is what we need to get racing back to where it was again, and to have tonight, you know, hopefully this can kick on for many years to come.
All right, you've still got some big races ahead with this guy, and he's still only the freshman on the scene. Can you beat Copy That and some of the others in the upcoming month?
Yeah, 100%. You can't say no. You know, you look at the draw tonight. Copy That was always going to be deadly hard to beat. With that draw, you change it. You know, you put all three of those good ones on the second line or out wide, and they're doing that little bit more work. It changes the whole complexion of the race. Copy That got it easy. It was hard to come off the track all night, and Mark's ones had to do work. So it's played into his hands, but like I said, he was still the best horse. You change those situations in these upcoming races in the next month, 100% we're a chance.
Pretty brave defence.
Oh, most definitely, Greg. Look, he won a great race. I just think Copy That was the best horse on the night, and the horse that ran second was the second best. They made their own luck, and they were just too good.
Well, you knew he'd stand up, and he did.
Yeah, that's right. No, I was always confident in our horse's ability, and we can mix it with just about any horse in this part of the world when he's on song, and we were pretty confident he was pretty close to being on song, so he didn't let us down.
What about the way the race was run? Is that how you expected it?
Yeah, pretty much. Obviously, there was a few scenarios that could potentially happen, but that looked the most logical one on paper, and that's pretty much how it turned out. And it was a great, keenly contested race, which is what you want to see at this level.
All right. What about coming back to a race like this and the atmosphere while you're out on the track? Does it want you to want more?
Absolutely. No, we've thoroughly enjoyed our experience here right from start to finish, and even just the crowd was roaring as we came out on the track. It's something we don't experience very often as harness drivers. So no, great to be a part of it. The club's done a super job, and if we get the opportunity to come back, we won't hesitate.
Yeah, and thanks so much to you and Jess for bringing your two boys out here. You certainly added to the build-up and the race itself.
Yeah, no worries at all. So we had mixed result on the board, but so that's the joys of having two horses, I guess. So no, we can't complain.
Well, it was never going to be easy from there, was it?
No, it wasn't, Greg, and just caught wide that last lap, took its toll, but gee, I thought his run was pretty good.
Well, he was the most inexperienced. He had a difficult draw, but you must have been wrapped with that.
Yeah, we were, Greg. Like he finished hard on South Assured's back on the line. He's doing his best work on the line, so he's still quite raw. Like he's not doing things quite right, but he's a nice horse and going forward, and it sort of didn't really worry him, a high pressure race like that.
So the aftermath of the race by Grins there, Michael, not a whole heap to come out of it. I think everyone pretty much expected Copy That once he got there to be the horse to beat, and that's exactly what happened. Obviously the 888 gear malfunction was a bit of a problem. I don't think he would have been a factor anyway. I thought Better Eclipse was excellent. Obviously, no matter what, was definitely going to run third until she put in that long stride that she can do. So yeah, there was a bit of criticism about her being in the race and whether she was up to that level. I think she clearly let people know that she is.
Yeah, she was the surprise of the race. I mean, over a long period of time now, when leaders and trailers win, the horse three back on the inside tends to get dragged into a good spot, like a third placing, but still very good for a rating 65 horse. So look, she obviously is going to fit into open class at some stage if she continues to improve. Self Assured was good. It's not a case where Self Assured just turns up and wins for fun when he's in this grade. So he pretty much was what we expected him to be. And reverse the draws, maybe we're talking about a totally different horse. Copy That's obviously in a really good spot. We saw him last week. We mentioned that on the preview show. He looked fantastic. He looked healthy. And we'll probably see something similar this week at Alexandra Park. Old Town Road misses this week, and I think he's not absolutely going as good as he can. I'm not saying he would have won that race last week, because I don't think he would have the way it panned out. But I reckon he's about 10% down on the version I saw at the Hunter Cup in Australia, and horses often go through those periods. So I think he'll be either better later in the autumn, and I definitely think he'll be better at the back end of the season, Greg. I thought Better Eclipse was really good, considering he had to move early and then had to come around horses again. He absolutely is going to be a factor in one of these races coming up. Again, not maybe the Taylor Mile this week because of the barrier draws. And I thought Kango was really good. Worked, sat parked outside a very good horse and didn't shirk it. I think Kango's going very well, close to his peak. And again, he finished third in an Auckland Cup last year. I think he's somewhere in the mix for something like that again. So I've been really happy with how he's come on. And Nicholas Cage got no room late in the piece.
He was pretty good though, Michael.
Yeah, he was good. He was, and as you know, Greg, it's really hard to work out how much they've got left, but he absolutely could have finished closer. So it was a weird thing. I'm not talking about us being experts because we get lots of races wrong and lots of races right. But last week on the show, I said, Copy That might just charge to the lead, beat Old Town Road, and people will say the race is boring. And I was actually out after my radio show on Saturday morning, and I bumped into a young junior driver from Waikato who said, the race was really boring. And he's actually a good fella. He wasn't narking on the race, but it raises a really interesting point about what harness racing expects from itself. Because when I left there, I was happy for Ray Green, I was happy for Blair, happy for Merv Butterworth. I was just happy that a good horse is back after all the troubles he's been through. And I thought, wow, what a great night. I didn't really think the race was boring because there was enough movement in it. And for once, it turned out exactly how I thought. But it does raise a really interesting question about how harness racing views itself. Because if every time a leader, whether it's Millwood, Nike, in the Oaks or whoever, rolls to the front and wins, we think it's boring. And we expect every race to be like the race from Grins last year or like a lunatic asylum race you see once in a while at Gloucester Park. If that's the only time we're going to enjoy racing, then we're in for a pretty tough couple of years. Because a lot of harness races are going to have the leader just lead and win. Now, let's put that to the other code. Because there's so much hype about Gallops racing. The first ever Everest was won by Redzel, who just jumped to the lead, kicked clear at the top of the straight and won.
Yep.
No one said it was boring. Yep. Black Caviar's wins were largely formulaic. She would just sit outside the leader and go quicker and win.
Yep.
And you get the occasional horse like Winx, who was so good she would come from behind them most of the time, and sometimes it's quite dramatic. And I know it's cool to look at it, and I do agree a really fired up, crazy race sometimes is great, and your blood gets boiling and it's really fun. But not everything's going to be that way. I mean, I've been to a lot of races this year. The New Zealand Cup, the Miracle Mile, obviously the Inter-Dominion final was a lead trail situation. We're going to get a lot of them. And if we don't appreciate the horsepersonship and the horse's efforts to do that, then we're going to start walking away from the track all the time saying, wow, that was boring because no one did something stupid. So it's an interesting conundrum we find ourselves in, Greg, that for me, it was great for Ray, great for the horse after all he's been through. And the bottom line is for the punters watching this, the TAB boosted his odds to 2.8.
Yep.
If someone's willing to give me 2.8 about the best horse in the country, one of the two best horses, because there's him
at Cambridge in front.
Well, that's not boring.
No.
That's Greg, that's how I pay for half the stuff in my house.
Yep.
So I do think it's a problem with harness racing, is that we think any time there's not someone doing something incredibly dramatic and upsetting people, because guess what? This week at Alexandra Park is half a chance we're going to see that happen with Muscle Mountain and Copy That. And it doesn't deter from the horse at all. So, again, not potting anybody, it's just something which we have a lot in this game. When the favourites win, we go, oh, it was boring. Well, what's the other option? You know, David Butcher pulling the bat at the 1,000 and getting up outside the leader, and then people start saying, well, David's a lunatic. I don't know what sweet spot we're looking for,
no.
But I thought it was a really great night and a really good occasion, and I thought the horse we thought was going to win one.
1.2 million they turned over, a couple of 100,000 compared to the comparable program last year, so an excellent turnover result there. Spoke to David Branch earlier in the week. They've got a few things they want to tweak. They didn't open the gates early enough. They tried to play Who Loves Who the most to build the crowd up, but they didn't have anyone out the front to build the crowd up. So there's just little things that I reckon they'll definitely improve on. But what I did want to touch on is congratulations to Summit Bloodstock, Aaron Bain Racing, Richard Cole, Glenn Holland, Trevor Casey and Stephen Hunt. They were the slot holders, and of course to Wayne Keegan, who bought one ticket and managed to grab 50,000 as a result of Copy That winning. So yeah, great result for them, all round a terrific contest, and yeah, can't wait for the next of those, which this week, although it's not worth $1 million, is of course the Taylor Mile, which is always an excellent race. It's with Dawson Harford and partner. Let's have a look at the market for it, Michael. Copy That's come up with barrier 2. He's a previous winner of the race. He's $1.60, $4.80 for a Cooter. We had a pretty hard run last week. Self-Assured's drawn to get the 3 back on the fence run. Tony Hurley to drive this week, $6. And then the next best is Nicholas Cage with a change of driver too. Todd Mitchell picking up the drive there with Matthew White on holiday in Perth. So, is it as formulaic as last week, Michael?
I struggle to see how they're going to beat him. Smithy's terror won't be an issue from the inside for Copy That, so I presume he crosses him. Maybe they roll the dice on a Nicholas Cage type horse or one of the Telfer horses. I mean, an Ultra Wise Guy type horse could potentially go forward, but as we saw last week, when those good horses are rolling the gate hard and fast, it's really hard to get across them. Really, really hard. And I just don't think they'll get across them, and that puts them in front, and then I don't see too much pressure. Self-Assured's drawn to be 3 back on the marker pegs. It's a long autumn. I wouldn't be stunned if they just stayed there. They may not, but I wouldn't be stunned if they did that, and in fact it might be their best chance of running second. And then a Cooter. Is a Cooter really going to get up outside Copy That and attack him? He had a hard run last week, Greg.
Yeah.
I just don't see where the pressure comes from unless it's that initial pressure. And a Nicholas Cage could bring that, but he is fast off the gate, but he's not that fast.
No, and he's drawn right beside Copy That. So.
Yep. Well, as we saw BD Joe last week, BD Joe's pretty quick off the gate. But once they're going that quick, there's no crossing them. And we mentioned that on the show last week. We tried to tell people that was likely because I rang David Butcher, who was the king of Cambridge, and he said, look, you just can't cross them going that quick. No. And I think it'll be the same at Alexandra Park this week. And even then, unless it was Nicholas Cage, if it was Ultra Wise Guy who got across, and I don't think he will, I'm sure he would hand Greg. Maybe they would roll the dice with Nicholas Cage, but I think you're looking for fairy tales in there somewhere. I just think Copy That'll probably lead and probably win. And then you get back to, is that boring? Well, it depends what you want to do with $1.60, Greg. If you can find something else to multi it into, it's not boring when you win.
No, exactly. The other feature from last Friday night was, of course, the Group 1 Turf Bar Flying Mile. Here's Aldebaran Zeus. 2 parts to this race that we need to show you. The start, and he was wide throughout. So here it is. He was drawn to the inside of Majestic Man, and those drawn directly inside, Sacred Mountain and Resolve and Invictus, all decided to come out reasonably quickly, particularly the Sacred Mountain and Invictus, and that meant that Chris Alford had to keep pressing to 1, keep Majestic Man wider, but 2, to get the lead. But once he got there, this was a terrific display by him. Duncan McPherson on track to see him race, and Brent Lilly said he'd be bang on for this race, 155 and 9. Indicated that he was. Big performance by the second horse, Michael, and Love in the Port, but Aldebaran Zeus was simply too good, as we hear from Chris Alford post-race.
Now, Chris, you are no stranger to winning big races, no stranger to winning them in New Zealand, but so good to have you here at Cambridge.
Yeah, thanks. It's a big thrill, and on such a big night, it's great to see a good crowd, and hope the race lives up to it.
Now, that first quarter was pretty slick and you were 4 wide. What were you thinking at that time?
Yeah, I was just happy that we were able to stay in front of Majestic Man, and I thought the inside ones would sort of relent. They were pretty rough ones in the field, so once we stayed in front of him, we just had to wait for him to back off and then let him stride forward. And once he got to the front, he relaxed really well.
And it was a comfortable win in the end. Worth him coming over anyway to start his New Zealand campaign.
Yeah, for sure. I just hope he gets better as the races go on.
And a big thank you to Joe Stevens there, catching up with Chris Alford post-race for us. Michael, he's a very good horse, but he's got a pretty big task this week.
He does. He's got good gate speed, but again, that video showed you when those absolute top-class horses race each other, it's really hard to cross. Even for a horse like him, who has had very high gate speed by Australian standards. So Chris drove him beautifully. He held on to enough at the start to keep him in front of Majestic Man, but probably expecting to go around and get the front. He was very fit. He was really tight when you could see him up close on track. I'm not sure there's enormous improvement in him fat-wise. How cleaned out his lungs will be, I don't really know. I think Muscle Mountain rejoining the fray this week is a totally different kettle of fish, because we're in an unusual era, Greg, with no Bolt for Brilliance because he's injured, Sunday Sun, and temporarily retired. We've gone from having this really big, chunky open class ranks to having a sort of diluted open class ranks. and I think Muscle Mountain's the best of ours by a mile, and then Midnight Dashes on the sidelines have lost them more depth. This horse might beat him when he gets in front of him, Greg. I don't know, but he might beat him one day. I don't think that'll be this Friday night. And then the question starts to be in your mind, well, will Muscle Mountain get across Majestic Man this week? And back in the field there, Majestic Man was very poor, clearly not at his best. And you would think there would be a lack of confidence this week on that performance to be parking out Muscle Mountain on Friday night. So with all that information in the same place and the barrier draws, how it's panned out for the Lyell Creek, I reckon we see Muscle Mountain run to the front, Greg, and Aldebaran Zeus will do really well to finish top 3.
Yeah, well, I spoke to Phil Williamson yesterday about that, Michael, and he said 2 years ago he might have considered parking Muscle Mountain, but you're right, they need a bit of a confidence booster, and why wouldn't you trail New Zealand's and arguably Australasia's Kingpin and Muscle Mountain for this week's Lyell Creek. It's the 49th running of that very good race, and yeah, looking forward to it on Friday night. Next week, of course, we have the National Trot for $90,000, and also we have the New Zealand Messenger Championship. So, and there's a Harness Million race on at Auckland at Addington next week. They start about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, just wanted to highlight that it's an afternoon meeting for the Addington meeting next week. We've just had a look at Aldebaran Zeus winning at Cambridge. Good weekend it was for the Alfred Lily combination, because they did this with Queen Elida. They both won similar amounts of money. As we go to the break, this is her dominating once again in the trotting free-for-all at Melton in a very respectable 157 1 mile rate.
Runs away and runs him into the ground. Queen Elida too good. Beat Ultimate Stride by 15 metres. Credit Master Rank.
So we go back to Ararat, and what happened next, Michael, for young Zach Chappenden wasn't ideal. In fact, yeah, lotto ticket time for him. He's finished second in the race. I think he was probably going to win it, but then he avoided getting run over as well. Pretty dramatic and graphic scenes there, the seat just collapsing, but he holds on. I'm sure he was going to win, but that wasn't his concern right about now, was it?
No, remarkable footage. Well done to him. He's pretty light on his feet. He might have played a bit of footy, looking at that one there. Yeah, it could have been so much worse. So while it's semi-funny when you see it now and it's quite dramatic to look at, yeah, that could have been disastrous. So we've seen it a couple of times. In my time in harness racing, probably 5 times I've seen it. The seat come loose and the driver come out of the sulky. But yeah, he's actually made a big impression since arriving in Victoria, has Zach. So
that was another way to get a favourite beaten, Michael. Burton was a $1.90 favourite, and if you're on, maybe you shouldn't have another bet for a wee while.
I'm just glad we can all laugh joke about it. Yeah, exactly, because it could have been really, really bad. But yeah, he's actually made a good impression. I think he's made such a good impression that in weeks, months and years to come, that won't be the thing he's known for, but it will be for the next couple of days.
All right, we're going to have a decent look at a preview now and go back to Alexandra Park. That's what we do as the horse I want to have a look at. Here's his latest trial for, that's what we do, for the Dickey camp. Hitting the lead here, Michael. Springbank Mason to its outside, King's Landing through the middle. All cashed up, dashes into 4th position here too, but that's what we'll do. Raced by John Dickey and his late mate Richard Bright, who of course his bar, the Group 1 Turf Bar, sponsored the Trotters Flying Mile the other night. But pretty smart sort of a horse, beautifully bred by Love You out of Great Getaway. And yeah, on the way this horse is trialled leading into this and what John's told me, they expect that the horse would only get better as the Love Yous tend to do. Should take a power beating in the 4th there on Friday night.
Yeah, nice enough field actually. A little bit more depth to this than often in this grade. So Agree. Think it's probably a 5-win horse at least on what I've seen of it at the races and the trials. Kiwi Tricks is in that race, Liaison. It's quite a tidy little field, so it could be quite a good form race to watch. Just the early luck is going to be a factor there. Good to see some mobile trotting races this week at Alexandra Park too. I think they make a nice change, particularly on a Taylor Mile night, Greg, where people are getting that speed buzz going on. I think it's quite cool to see lots of mobile racing there.
Hey, there's another really good race, and we go back to the Country Cups final from Waikato last week at Cambridge. Cause I Can took it out. Simply Sam storms down the outsides, got the outside of the second row under the pref draw for this race, but Sooner the Better is going around from a handy barrier draw, Neptune, Mickey Montana, but I thought Simply Sam was good enough here to suggest that he'll take a bit of beating on Friday night.
Yeah, I couldn't work this race out. I think it depends on whether Sooner the Better runs to the front and is just too good. And I think he's a horse who's getting better all the time. Or there's enough tempo and therefore he leaves himself vulnerable to a Simply Sam type horse. I think Simply Sam, the good thing about him is, Greg, is he's going to end up in open class. So I think it's good. We need some additions to the Northern Open class ranks, and couple more wins, he'll be there, and as we saw in the Cambridge Flying Mile 2 weeks ago, he'll be a factor because he has enough speed. So yeah, welcome to open class eventually, Simply Sam. Maybe, as you point out, he'll take a step in that direction on Friday night.
We're in a really good period for harness racing at the moment because, of course, it is Diamonds Day down there on Sunday at Invercargill, midday start. Look at the stakes that I've got on offer there. You've got a chance to win a diamond ring, $5,700. I think the way you do that is place a $5 bet, ladies, and every bet you have gets you in the draw. There's a Prezi card to be won and all of those features. Go to southernharness.co.nz. Spoke to Jason Broad. He said if you want to back a winner, he thinks Peregrine will be winning race number 11, but all in all, it's just a fantastic day, Diamonds Day there on Sunday, so we want to give it a decent preview, starting with one of the features. Here's Vessem, 2 from 2, Kindergarten Stakes winner, Blair Orange back in the bike, comes up with the outside barrier, and Major Hot, who got pretty close to it here, Michael, has drawn really handily in barrier 2, has Olivia Thornley. There wasn't a lot between this pair when they met last time. Kirsten Green doing the steering for the All-Stars, but Blair back in the bike as he was when this horse won on debut. Market has $2.30 Vessem, $2.70 Major Hot. Thought it was a good performance from So Do You Have Time last time too, but it's a race that's likely to be dominated by the All-Stars again.
One of the crucial factors for punters, Greg, is when you have two horses from the same stable who dominate the market, and people may well expect to run 1 2. Often the draws don't matter. I'm not saying they won't matter. Maybe they will. Maybe Major Hot will go out and get the lead and just keep going. But when they're from the same stable, not just the All-Stars, anybody's stable, if Vessem comes up outside it and keeps pressing, as Blair tends to do, well, maybe it's going to get the lead. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it doesn't put me off. If Vessem was up against 3 Southern horses inside him who are comparably in the market, I'm worried for about my $2.30. Up against a stablemate, I'm less worried because if Blair comes with intent, he's a chance of getting the lead. Still, the connections of Major Hot might say, no, we want to give it a crack in front this week. So just a punting theory, Greg, without knowing those horses very well, because I've only seen the son of Vincent go a couple of times and we're still not quite sure who's improving the most and how they all go. Just on that video though, I thought at the line, Vessem was actually holding.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the $2.30 will shorten as the week goes on. You talk about stables with multiple runners in. Let's have a look at last week. Ahoka Connor, he was too good again, and this week, well, he has to take on a few of the Craig Ferguson team. He raced a couple of them last week, Cormac Leo and Wagstar, who was excellent late in the piece, but Ahoka Connor's 5 from 5 now, Michael. He went 255.5 last week. He sat parked for half of the race and he was simply too strong. We'll have a look at the market very shortly, but I managed to catch up with Tim Williams around the Telfer Cullen team going into Sunday's race meeting. Here's what he had to say about Ahoka Connor. Tim, Ahoka Connor, he just keeps on winning.
Yeah, couldn't fault him, Greg. Each run, he's got that real will to win. I think seeing that 2 starts go at Addington, and I think that run almost brought him on a wee bit for the other day. I think it's the best feel he's given me race day, and really wanted to muscle up around the bend and get his head in front and really get rolling turning in.
He seems to relax beautifully in the run, because once he came alongside Cormac Leo, and let's face it, he was parked out for a good 1,200 metres, he just powered up under his own steam, and I noticed you didn't even need to pull the plates.
Yeah, it's a real credit to him. He can just drop the bid, and he's almost probably too casual at times. But the other day at the 600, when I asked him to pick the bid up, he really did travel to the quarter. And once I asked him, like you say, didn't have to release the deafness and got the line really strong.
Have you actually got anywhere near the bottom yet, or are you guys just not sure where that is for him?
Hard question. I think we may have got close, but yeah, I don't think we have touched the bottom yet. But he's such a big horse, and you might see the best of him again this week on the short backup. He's probably won. He's had his races pretty well spaced so far, and he's taken everything we've thrown at him, and you couldn't knock the horse. Got a great constitution and a great heart rate, and everything just seems easy with him. So I'm sure this week the backup you might see the best of him. What about this week, Barrier 1? What were your initial thoughts when you saw that? But you never knock a good barrier, Greg, so it is what it is. But he's drawn 1 before his first start, and he was okay, like you say. He's had a few runs under his belt now, and a little bit more ring craft, so it's the shortest way home against the fence. But he's obviously going to have to come out a little bit quicker than what he did his first start. I know you think he's a good stayer, so the 2700 right up his alley. Well, the time he ran on last week at Winton, and the ease he did it, so I'm sure the slightly longer distance this week, should be right up his alley. Who do you fear? Is it Cormac Leo, who was good last week, or Wagstar, both from the same stable, or is it Captain Tom, who was good last week? I think it was probably, like you say, the 4, Greg. Obviously, Baby Snow's 3, you couldn't knock any of them and their runs to date, and obviously got a good look at Captain Tom when I was there the other day, and he tracked me into the race, and you couldn't knock what he done and how easily he did it too. I thought he was really impressive the other day, and he's drawn to sit on their back for majority of the race. So it's going to be a very tactical race, but I think those 4 look the ones to beat for mine. And just talking to Tim after that interview, Da Vinci was the one he's probably most concerned about. Michael, he's come up to Addington before. He's come up to $1.65 favourite, has Ahoka Connor, and importantly, it's his last run for this campaign. They're going to give him a nice freshen up, and of course he's got the Derby at the back end of the year.
First things first, he's obviously a very good horse, and one would think he's going to be a Derby factor. Not saying he's going to beat Merlin, Don't Stop Dreaming, but that's an awfully long way away. I think he's an open class horse. He's had the 5 starts, and he's run home in 56.1's the slowest 800 he's run home, and every other time he's run home in 55 and change. Excellent last week. Spoke to Craig Ferguson about this week, and he said, look, we've got to try and cross him. If we just let him cruise along in front, we have no chance, we being Craig with his 3 horses. So they'll have a dig. And that's where things get interesting, because does that bring Ahoka Connor out of his comfort zone? He can get crossed because he came from last week and still win. But where things get tricky then, Greg, is if he does get crossed, do you go for the retake? Does a Da Vinci wait for Wagstar to get there, in which case the retake takes longer or may not be there at all? And while all of this is unfolding, Captain Tom should be on the back of Ahoka Connor. Now, Captain Tom is very similar to Ahoka Connor, relatively untapped, also ran home same times last week, almost identical times, ran home slightly slower. But if Ahoka Connor, say for example the Ferguson team says, no, there's no lead there for you, and Ahoka Connor's sitting parked, and Captain Tom follows him into the race, then do you really want to be on Ahoka Connor at $1.60, sitting parked with Captain Tom on his back? I don't think there's much between them. I think maybe Ahoka Connor's the better horse. I don't know that for sure. But the last time we saw him trying to sit parked against slightly better horses in Coney Island Lou at Addington, he only just edged over the top of them. And in my mind last night, Greg, when I was doing the replays, I think put Captain Tom on his back in that situation, would he come off his back and beaten him? Captain Tom, admittedly, went to Addington and got a bit lost. So it's a very unusual equation. If Ahoka Connor's in the race by himself, I just take any odds, he comes and sits parked and win. But because he could have a very similar horse on his back, Greg, over 2,700 metres, if he leads, Captain Tom's on his back. If he has to sit parked, Captain Tom follows him round. It's an icky little race for him. I think he'll win. And I was going to have a decent multi with him last night, but after doing more video research, I'm not confident enough at $1.60 to do that.
Yep, the 40th running of the Alabar Southern Supremacy. Good horses win this race. In fact, the last two, Ragazzo, Mac and Sandwave, Nathan Williamson with a bit of a mortgage the last couple of times. He has Rucker Murph in this year's edition. We have, of course, the Southland Oaks as well. A couple of videos to look at here, Michael. First of those, here's Black Pearl. Had to sit parked out of the very good race filly and Laura Alla. A good time, 2:58.2. Really found the line strongly, beating race rival Wadaminx, who was excellently handled on this occasion by Craig Ferguson. Looked the winner at the top of the straight, but just couldn't quite get there. But Black Pearl, she's improved. She's come up with a beautiful barrier draw. She's $4.20. But here's the favourite, Sweet Diamond, beating the previously unbeaten Fortify. Plugs remained in, Blair Orange in the cart, and her last 100 metres was as good as any part of this race, and that was in a heat of the size, and she actually ran away and won very comfortably. So Sweet Diamond home in 55.426.8. Let's hear what Tim Williams has to say about this rising star. Tim, Sweet Diamond, 3 on the bounce, but you haven't been in the bike.
Yeah, I've been lucky. Had great replacements to keep the seat warm, and yeah, hopefully I'm jumping on at the right time again this week.
How much has she improved, and what are the drivers that have been on, Johnny Cox and Blair Orange, been saying to you, and what about around the stable? What have you noticed with her, because she's clearly gone to the next level?
Yeah, look, just the last week, I think Greg, her coat sort of got a real shine again, and she's really bounced through that last run at Addington. I spoke to Blair the other night at Cambridge, and couldn't have spoken more highly about her. He said she she's able to lead and dictate and run a pretty quick half, and he was pretty sure there's still a wee bit left at the end. He still had the plugs tucked in, so I think it was just a really, really good confidence run, and good race to really top her off for this week, hopefully. And I think the draw looks like it could set up quite nicely for us.
What did you make of Black Pearl last week? Excellent, and obviously Treacherous Gal's been going great, but it's been cruel by the draw again.
You look, two very smart fillies in their own right. You couldn't knock Cran's one last week. It couldn't have been more impressive. The sectionals, and obviously it was a pretty blustery sort of day down there, so obviously they might have the advantage on us early, drawing the front row, but I had a lot of confidence in my filly for, like you say, the last 3 runs, what she's been able to do. En Rouge, she had no luck and sat parked and broke the track record, and be able to lead and get home in 55, sort of hard held last week. So I couldn't be more confident in my horse going forward, but like you say, it's second row draw is going to be dictated too early what happens.
Purely from a punting point of view then, Michael, $1.65 Sweet Diamond, $4.20 for Black Pearl, and $5 for Treacherous Gal. How would you approach this, the Southland Oaks?
I think it's really hard, Greg, for the punters to want to take short odds from second lines, but it is a weekend where I think multi-betting is going to be favoured, whether that's Muscle Mountain through Copy That, through this type of horse, and you could even make a case to split an Ahoka Connor and Captain Tom to give you 2 different versions of that same bet. So I think that's the way to approach it. I really like Black Pearl, but I do think she looks a little bit like her mother, but a smaller version of her mother, and I think she's got quite a bit of filling out to do and growing. I think she'll be a far bigger filly by the time we get to the back end of the season. So Sweet Diamond clearly on top. Odds are too short for many people, Greg, but you can make a case that you can chuck her into your multi-bets. Black Pearl, I think we're going to see a really nice filly for the next Oaks, which is about 8 months away.
Yep, well, she'll certainly stay, I think. There's no doubt about that at all. Let's go on to the staying race, the feature pacing race, if you like. Here's Franco Norton. Well, he won this at the start, Michael. He's just a brilliant standing start exponent. He'll need to be this week off 35 metres, but he got to the lead. That's One Change having a crack at him there. They went very good time, home in 54.2, so they couldn't get to him. See Art was in 3rd position there, but Franco Norton keeps on winning these country cups. He'll get another great chance to win this week. Tim Williams will be trying to stop him though with See Art. Tim, hard to knock See Art's form this time in.
Yeah, he's just a lovely horse, Greg. Great manners. The last 2 runs he's been back to the stand. He's been able to put himself in a handy spot, and it took 2 pretty smart ones to beat him last time, and they ran a really slippery last half. So he will have come on a wee bit from that run, but another really nice field again this week.
What's his optimum racing style, I suppose, when he beat the likes of Ararat and Sam Wave? That was on a wet track and he led that day. Is that where he's best placed, or do you think at this level he's better with a trail?
Look, he's very versatile, Greg. It's probably one attribute that's, fortunate for me. It's, he's not a one-trick pony, but, I think his manners are his best attribute. Like you say, when he's able to jump and lead at Wyndham and put himself handy without doing much work. So off the 10 metres, if he can make a clean beginning with only the small front row, that's going to be the winning and losing of the race for him on Sunday. Hopefully he can really get the start right and put himself very handy.
Yeah, good race, the Country Cup's final, Michael. I really like Wheels of Fortune for John Hay. He's a good star. He thought enough of him to put him in the Derby back in December, and he's only off the 10 metres with Sea Art. So Franco Norton would want to get on his bike early, but he can begin very quickly. Yeah,
I've really liked Franco Norton over this last sort of 4 or 5 start period. He showed us way back at Addington, about September, he went a perler one night and caught everybody's eye. And Styx has been really patient with him since. I'm good to see him with another really good horse. I never know what to make of standing start handicap country cups type races, Greg. I feel bad tipping against the best horse, but I know so often they get beaten. It may be a race where I need a lot more thought, and I might even just watch it and enjoy it, Greg. I find them one of the hardest versions of racing to bet into, but that's why you also get some good prices for them, because they're so even and so much depends on who steps where and whether the leaders decide to declare war and take off and go, which tends to be the case on this day. It tends to be a very hard running day, or the other horses get into the race. And there's nothing more uncomfortable, Greg, than backing a horse of 20 or 30 or 35 and the leaders just disappear into the wild blue yonder, and a lap and a half from home, you're like, I'm stuffed. So that's why I don't bet them very often.
All right, so 330 Franco Norton, 360 for Wheel of Fortune, 750 Sea Art. And got your coverage in there too. Sam Motley doing the driving for Brent and Tim White at around $6.50. Nathan Williamson with Get Up and Dance, who of course these days is trained by Bob Butt. Great day down there on Sunday. I'm so pleased it's on a Sunday. That means we get the Aussie turnover as well. And I reckon there'll be plenty of eyes on Diamonds Day. Good luck to the team down there for their very big day. Addington Raceway have another Thursday night program, and they've got an excellent trotting race. Paramount Empress was a little bit too good last week. In front, fresh up, Michael. She's got a lot of talent. She goes round in the 8th running of the Stallions Australasia Aged Classic, and she found the line very nicely over Katie Hawke here and would only improve, one would imagine.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see her in the race. I don't know why, but I thought she would have, because obviously for this race you can't have raced or have won a race which is worth more than $55,000, or I think you can't be Group 1 placed. There's conditions like that. And for some reason, I don't know why, but I thought she would have been. But of course she hasn't contested that many races, so really impressive last week. Not often you see Natalie holding on to one quite like that, and I thought from the front line draw, Greg had to be the one to beat. So nice field, but you just get the feeling this is a horse heading towards open class, whereas others here will do so, but maybe not with the same velocity.
All right, they've put up $3, therefore. Does that interest you? So $3 for Paramount Empress, $5 Harold Smith, excellent first up. 2 Tangata, well, Paul Nen has got a suspension from last week's drive, so Blair Orange takes the drive, $3.50. Majestic Lavros at $6.50, and Time Up the Hill has been allowed to get out to $15 alongside My Moments Now. Off the back of your comments there, therefore, is Paramount Empress worthy of a wager this week, Michael?
A lot of times, Greg, the way I bet it, it almost doesn't matter whether you think they're going to win, it's whether you're getting a better price than you're going to get. Like Muscle Mountain this week with the bookies open to $1.55, it'll start at $1.20. So if you back it, you can back something else later in the race, closer to race start, where Aldebaran Zeus might get out to $7. So yes, I think $3 is very fair. I think the bookies and the tab have given you some really fair odds recently. Copy that 2.8 last week was remarkable.
Yep.
Remarkable. I thought it would start at $1.80. I think at the moment you have a team of bookies who have information and they put their views together. And I think often you're trying to be too smart for your own self. You're thinking, well, what, say this person does this and is this going to get parked out and stuff. But here's the lesson for them. Punters don't think that way. Most punters last week were going to back Copy That because it was the most logical thing. They knew the name. It's won 2 New Zealand Cups. They know Blair Orange. And at the moment, the bookies are missing some of those targets and they're giving you really good money about horses who should be shorter. Just cash in. Just take it, punters. Like, there's never been a bet. It must be affecting their margin because there's never been a better time. I can't remember a month or maybe a 6-week period. And yes, I have been cashing in. I've been playing fair, but I've been absolutely cashing in because at the moment, the bookies have missed a lot of targets. And I think what it comes down to is they're looking for things that aren't there and thinking that some magical fairy is going to drive some horse and it's just going to lead and park out, Copy That, and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, go back to the start of the show. Some people find that boring. Having money is not boring. No. So get involved.
Yep, fair call. Feature pace there on Thursday night. He's a Sport finishing 4th in the Coca-Cola Superstars. It was a markers-dominated race. Anything goes, got through on the inside. The Falcons in this week, though. He should find the front and take a fair bit of beating. But you've got the likes of Terry, Heisenberg. Obviously, He's a Sport's a fairly decent sort of an animal. And Happy Place does get off the gate pretty well, so it'll be in the right spot throughout. But I'd imagine off the back of 2 runs that He's a Sport will be improved. Over the 1980, though, the outside of the front row negated somewhat by just being the 7 in the race. Really sad to hear the passing of Peter Craig last week. He was farewelled yesterday. A great historian of harness racing, spent a lot of time at Harness Racing New Zealand and just did a lot of behind the scenes stuff on the history. So really sad to hear about his passing, just out doing his gardening and unfortunately lost his life. So really sorry to hear about Peter Craig's passing. Methven last Sunday, we got to see the 3 men in the 3000 Club. Yes, Richard Terence May, who lives in Methven, of course, Maurice McKendry, who is a Methven boy, and Tony Herlihy. So they had a great day out. I think it was Maurice in the end that got the business done with regards to the series. They raced over 6 races. Ricky got a win on the day, though, so he was very pleased with that. Here was Maurice winning with the John Morrison train Jimmy Ray, country's leading reinsman, Blair Orange to their inside, but there were some great shots and some great camaraderie out of the day. Morris's familiar salute there, and we got some photographs courtesy of, well, the greatest photographer of all time, he got me to say that, AJ Berry, of the 3 mates hanging out, doing what they do best, and yeah, that's a cracking shot there by the Race Images team. And if you want to get any images from that wonderful establishment, go to raceimages.co.nz. God, that was hard work just to get a photo on there for AJ. Short break for us. We're just about in the home straight in your box seat, courtesy of our stable of sponsors. There was another $1 million race in Australia, or in Australasia, and it was the Nullarbor. It was that man, Jason Grimson and Cam Hart, doing it again, Michael, with the expat Kiwi Better Zip It.
Yep, and very similar to the Cambridge race, just took longer for them to sort themselves out. Gate speed from one horse, handed to another horse, and the horse who got to the front was too good, so Better Zip It has been a bit of a revelation since crossing the Tasman. Formerly with Sean McCaffrey, actually did some really good things in New Zealand and would have ended up in open class here, but takes out the first running of the Nullarbor. Congratulations to all the team involved in WA. They had a trilogy of slot races there, one for the Hounds, one for the Gallops, of course, the Quokka one by Bune Baker on Saturday. Really cool initiative, great race night. Let's hope heading for these more eastern seaboard horses heading there. Greg, maybe, who knows, one day a New Zealand horse or trainer, if we can maybe not have them on the same night, which would be a good idea.
Yeah, it would be a lot better, wouldn't it?
I know one of your old mates won the other day at Albion Park.
Yes, he did.
Interesting. Turn it up. Well, how many wins do you now? 30 or something?
29, I think it is, yeah. Let's have a look at his winning performance. Also in this race was Hot and Treacherous, Michael. That's him parked out. He battled on solidly enough to run 4th, but yeah, Turn It Up just does what Turn It Up does. He finds the front. He's won nearly $750,000 now, and yeah, in front for sneaky Shane Graham. Got it done there with Garrards, and yeah, he's just been a brilliant racehorse. Turn It Up, the former Auckland Cup winner. Let's have a look at the Stonewall offerings. We gave them the week off last week with it being such a big occasion, being the race by Grins. But here was lot 225 by Stay Hungry out of Bodine Blinks. Bodine Blinks being a sister to Bodine Boaz, a Harness Jewels winner and the winner of over $1 million. This is also the family of Bad to the Bone. You can get involved there. For not a heck of a lot of money, $3,248. And don't forget about the $180 fixed cost if that's the way you want to pay. Here's an Art Major at a better thing twice. This family is already left, or the mother's already left. Storm, it's the family of Inspiring Dash. That's Venus Serena, Laver, Sheriff, all of those. So $3,100 for that one. Captain Treacherous out of Cheer the Lady. Here's a bit of breeding. She won the Oaks, of course. She's left 2 foals to race for 2 winners. This is the family of Galleon's Cheer, Duke of Cornwall. Just a really solid family. You can get involved there for $5,907. And the Better's Delight Edinburgh Franco. Again, just over $5,900 if you want to be involved there. 3 foals to race, 3 winners. This is the family of Franco, Enforce and Akuta. Go to stonewallstud.co.nz, get a hold of Jill Stockman. She does a massive job with that venture, and I'm sure she will love to have you part of the ownership team. Here's the map for you to tell you where you can go harness racing. We mentioned that Australasia Sire Stakes, Stallions Australasia Sire Stakes Trot, $40,000, 5:26 the start time there at Addington. We've ended up with 8 races. Geraldine race on Friday, 1 o'clock start there, big celebration for the rugby club down there in Geraldine as part of that. The Dawson Harfoot Limited Taylor Mile, $90,000. Alexandra Park, 5:55 the start time there. It's actually 5:29 because they've ended up with 10. Invercargill, their massive day on Sunday, including the Diamond Creek Classic, the Supremacy, the Southland Oaks and the Country Cups, and Ashburton race on Monday, 12:23. Of course, it's Anzac weekend, so public holiday on the Tuesday. Best bets last week, we had 100 on Aldebaran Zeus because Congrazia Love was scratched, Michael. So over the last 2 weeks, the 500 we put into the sweepstake, we've recuperated, so breast cancer doesn't miss out there. So where are you going this week?
I thought it was a tricky night at Alexandra Park, but didn't mind Kiwi Tricks. I thought it was a horse who could probably do a pretty good job. But later in the night, there's a maiden, which was called Punk Rocker. Came with a big reputation and went to the workouts last week and won really well. It's got barrier 1. So I couldn't make up my mind between those two. Decided to go Punk Rocker because of the barrier. Nice horse and not a strong maiden late in the card at the park.
All right, I've gone for Sooner the Better, who's been banging heads with stablemate Merlin's, drawn 5, should lead, Zach Butcher, that'll do me. And Graham Hand, the hand milking man, he's gone with a Hoka Connor into Treacherous Gal. So that might be a nice wee multi-result there. Michael, thanks so much for your input, both last week leading into the race by Grins and wrapping it all up for us. And yeah, Friday night should be superb. You'll get a whole lot of info from there. Big day, Diamonds Day, Sunday. So a lot to look forward to in the world of harness racing.
And also, Greg, just mentioning Stonewall Stud. I've always been intrigued by how big the business is. We'll have a feature on them next week. We went out to there, looked at their famous track, speak to Steve Telfer about how it all works out there. So next week on the box seat, we dig a bit deeper into Stonewall Stud and how the big machine works.
Yep, certainly looking forward to that. Michael and I will see you in 7 days. The Box Seat brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Harness Link for your worldwide harness coverage. New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, where winning begins. Brecon Farms. Stonewall Stud. IRT, it's your horse and our passion. Australasian-wide Garrard's Horse and Hound. Renwick Farms. Lincoln Farms. Harness Racing New Zealand. And the clubs Addington, Ashburton, Alexandra Park and Cambridge.